In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use this entry pad to control multiple locks and how you program it to do that. With the ProLogic L02 to L66, you can manage 4 locks with this one entry pad. With the ProLogic WebLink, our network connected solution, you can actually manage 5 locks. So here's how we set this up. You have to tell the entry pad that it's got to be looking for more than one lock. So how do you do this? You press the menu button. Then you enter the system menu. You can do this with either supercode or manager code. I'll do it with a supercode. Then you scroll down until you see set number of locks. Set number of locks, press OK. And it's going to say enter manufacturer's code. That code is 975246. It'll be in your manual. It has 1 lock currently. I want to set it for 2 locks. There's 2 locks. I could go 3, I could go 4. I'm going to say 2 and press OK. Now it's going to come back out of the menu, and we've set this entry pad up so that it sees more than 1 lock. I would need to use a junction box called a CB11 in order to connect my entry pad to the junction box, and then from my junction box to lock 1 and to lock 2. Now let's take a look at the hardware setup and how you connect multiple locks to a ProLogic entry pad. This would also apply to ScanLogic series. So both the ProLogic and the ScanLogic can operate up to 4 locks. We do this using a junction box. This is a junction box we call a CB11. And how this works is it has multiple ports. It has a port here that we would connect our entry pad to, a second port that we would connect the first lock to, second lock, third lock, and fourth lock. You'll notice that it also has an AC port that we can plug in an AC adapter, and now we can power the entire system using AC power, and the battery in the entry pad becomes the backup. We're going to use this junction box in order to connect a number of different locks to this ProLogic, so you can see how to do it. Any of our locks can be used in a multi-lock system. This is our swing bolt lock, and it's usually used on external doors of safes. This is a spring bolt, sometimes called a slam bolt lock, that can be used in interior compartments. This is what we call a strike bolt lock, and it is a little bit different for safe applications, but how we would do this is instead of mounting this lock on the back of the door of the interior compartment, you could mount it on the jamb of the door, and then your door would have a pin on the back of it that would engage with this locking mechanism, and that would be controlled by the entry pad also. This is similar to a car door type of application where you'd slam your car door and the pin would engage here. We're using the same sort of mechanism as a strike bolt in applications for interior compartments. And then if your interior compartment had bolt work, you could always use our deadbolt as well. So depending on your bolt work application, you can select any of our locks. So now let me show you how you go ahead and set up a multi-lock system. All right, first we're going to use the CB11 junction box in order to connect the entry pad to the junction box, and then the first lock to the junction box as well. So how we do that is in our normal application, of course, we have the entry pad connected directly to the lock. In this case, we're going to disconnect this, and we're going to connect it to the port marked J0. And on the top of the junction box, you'll see port indications. J0 is the input, so we're going to connect that there. The next thing we're going to do is take another cable and we're going to connect it to J1, and that is the location for the first lock. And what we have to do now is tell this first lock that it is in fact the first lock. So how we do that is we do a mechanical reset. So using the cable that I've connected to the junction box, I would take a paper clip and on the back of the lock find the reset hole. In order to name this first lock, we're going to press the reset button down 3 times. That just eliminates any power that's in the capacitors inside the lock. Now we're going to press down and hold, and while we've held it down, we're going to connect the lock cable, which is connected to the junction box, to that lock and continue to hold for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can now release. Now, in order to name this lock, I would enter my code and it will ask me which lock I want to open. I'll select lock number 1 because I've only got one lock connected, and it will name this lock as lock number 1. So I enter the supercode, and you'll see it says verified, then it says select lock. I say 1, and it'll send a signal to this lock, so this lock opens. This lock is now named in the memory of this system as lock number 1. We can now go ahead and name the second lock that we're going to connect to this. All right, so in order to name this second lock that we're going to introduce, this is going to be a slam bolt we're going to put on the interior compartment. We need to do the similar process. So we're going to connect this lock to this entry pad through the junction box, and we're going to use the reset process in order to name it. Now the reset hole can usually be found underneath this little round sticker. It's a QC sticker, and we just want to remove that, and you'll find the reset hole right here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to disconnect lock number 1. And this is done so that you don't confuse the system by looking at different things when we're naming it. So we've disconnected lock number 1, and now we're going to connect lock number 2. We do that by using another cable, plug it into one of the other ports. I usually use the next port, so J2, 3, and 4, but it really doesn't matter. Once you've named it, it doesn't matter which port it's connected to. So with the cable connected, we now use the reset hole. We press 1, 2, 3, continue to press down and hold, and now we plug in our lock cable that's coming from the junction box. And you can hear with the spring bolt lock, the motor actually cycles when you plug it in. Count for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and release. Now, we enter our supercode. It's going to verify and say, which lock do you want to open? We're going to say lock number 2. And lock number 2 now opens. In opening this lock, it has named this lock, lock number 2. All right, so now we can connect lock number 1 and lock number 2, and the system will be ready to operate. I'll show you how that works. Now when I enter my code, I'll enter 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's going to say verified. Which lock would you like to open? Well, I'd like to open lock number 1. So it looks at it and says, okay, do I see a lock 1? Yes, and I can open the safe. If I wanted lock number 2, it would then look for lock number 2 and open that one. So that's how you set it up for multiple locks. It'll ask you which lock you want to open, and you press the corresponding number. Okay? So that's how it works with set number of locks.